Well, let's welcome live onto the programme now member of the Ukrainian Parliament, Artem Dmytruk, for his views. You're most welcome, sir. Ukraine has requested a third round of peace talks with Moscow this week in Istanbul. After much previous reluctance, why do you think Kiev took this decision now?
Good afternoon, and let me start by putting out my position regarding this so-called Ukrainian negotiating team is unchanged. I believe it's not a negotiating team, it's a part of the protocol process rather, and in this composition, we cannot speak about any real decisions, about real agreements, just like we cannot speak about Russia or Russian leaders could come to any terms with Zelensky, because Zelensky is not a legitimate president. He is not a representative of an authority figure in Ukraine, a representative of the people of Ukraine. He's just a person who seized power in Ukraine, simply a terrorist. So until this thing is not resolved in Ukraine, we cannot speak about any tangible results of the negotiations. In the same vein, we see that currently the Ukrainian side is doing everything it can to delay, to postpone all kinds of processes related to the negotiations. They are just trying to extend their existence, because any negotiations would end in the legal power coming to Ukraine. So first it would be an interim government, then after that there would be elections right away, or a period of stabilization after that election. So the current Ukrainian regime will do everything to postpone this process, to drag it out.
Lately, there have been a lot of clampdowns in Ukraine, including the most recent by the Ukrainian Security Service raiding anti-corruption agencies. What is your view of these raids happening?
No one is safe in Ukraine at the moment. No one can rely on the constitution, on laws, or on their rights in Ukraine. There is only one thing. These paranoid decisions or decrees by a mentally deranged person who seized power, person of non-traditional sexual orientation. So if there is someone who thinks that he's untouchable or nothing would happen to this person, or it would never reach this, or he would not be touched by the reprisals of the regime, then this person is gravely mistaken. So all those who are committing crimes as part of this regime, or just those who are keeping silence, are complicit. And sooner or later, Zelensky will get to them, because this type of government that he is carrying out currently, there is only one person who could survive this type of government, only him. That's why I urge everyone to get united around one problem, around one enemy who is currently residing on the Bankova street, and not looking enemies among ourselves. We need to understand it clearly. There is only one enemy that we are faced with, the enemy at the Bankova. So all these other structures like anti-corruption entities, we can see that they are not protected, so they cannot be silently complicit to the actions of the Zelensky regime. So I wonder why they haven't acted before. That's the first part of my answer. As for what's happening now between the anti-corruption body and the Zelensky regime, the Zelensky administration, well, in this regard, we can say that the anti-corruption body, they have launched an investigation, a small investigation into corruption crimes perpetrated by Zelensky, about those so-called black money that he's stealing from Ukraine. And we are speaking about more than $10 billion per year stolen by Zelensky in Ukraine. And even medium-scale investigation could register these crimes. And those people from his close circle, inner circle, who are part of these crimes. And this investigation, part of this investigation was his close partner, Deputy Prime Minister of Ukraine, Mr. Chernyshov. He was mentioned in the investigation materials of this anti-corruption body, and he's also one of the heads, and he was the man who controlled this Zelensky black money. And the anti-corruption body has already figured out the chain of these crimes. And we see the people of Zelensky, the SBU people, without any legal ground whatsoever, they entered the residences and offices of the officers of this anti-corruption body, and without any sanctions to do so, they took all the materials of this investigation that they were carrying out, and from what I know, large part of these materials contained information on Zelensky's crimes. So now we can say that basically Zelensky is destroying the very last body that was not controlled by him 100%. And also, from what I know, the heads of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine and the representatives of the Anti-Corruption Office of Ukraine, they will now be charged with crimes, with offenses, and currently they are outside Ukraine. And it is important to mention in this regard that those crimes that they are accused of, these are some car accidents or some old offenses, some trumped-up things. And the same thing was done with me when I was accused of certain crimes that happened 2 or 3 years ago that never truly happened. And they used these alleged crimes as a reason to charge me with real felonies and to charge me with actual crimes. They are now using the same scheme, the same model against the representatives of the anti-corruption entities. And they thought that they will never have to go through this and they would calmly survive till the end of the Zelensky regime. But we can see now that they are touched by this just like any other regular citizen of Ukraine might.
Despite Donald Trump's threats of sanctions against Russia and Europe's claims of increased support for Kiev, American investigative journalist Seymour Hersh reports that Zelensky may be at risk of exile and could be replaced. Do you think that's a real possibility?
Well, as of today, all the sanctions that are imposed on the Russian Federation or other decisions that might be made by the United States or by the European Union, the so-called European partners of Ukraine, they cannot have any impact on the actual situation in Ukraine, not inside the country, not on the front lines. So that's one. And what is also important to mention is that the U.S. administration They have an absolute influence on having Zelensky removed from power in Ukraine. And they can help Ukrainian citizens to legalize processes in Ukraine, to bring about this interim government, or to hold elections to stabilize the situation. So answering your question, the US administration have all the influence it needs on Zelensky and on his teams. So I guess the question is more about the thing that the US administration has no people in Ukraine, I mean, in the Ukrainian leadership, who could have represented their interests in Ukraine. For example, to replace Zelensky. But we need to understand that Zelensky cannot be simply replaced. So it is an elected position, so some processes should take place in Ukraine, certain elections should take place in Ukraine. So all these talks about the US replacing someone with someone, these are not the right things to discuss. The United States can remove their employee, Vladimir Zelensky, and then it's up to them what they do next, but they can remove him, and what they can do next is help Ukraine to stabilize the situation in Ukraine using other actors, other shareholders in other countries.
Amidst all that, Ukraine is continuing to ramp up its mobilization efforts. You commented on a video recently showing forcibly drafted men, calling it, quote, scarier than the front. Could you elaborate on what the mobilization situation is like right now?
Well, of course, this situation is indeed scarier than the front, because here an individual is inside his country, they are supposed to be safe, but wherever they are, at home, at their workplaces, or if they're just taking a stroll outside, they are being caught by their fellow Ukrainians. They are getting beaten, they are being tortured, and they are forced to go to the front lines. If they are not killed on the way there, on the way to the front line, or they are not poisoned somewhere else. As for the situation with those draft offices, this confrontation between the draft offices and the people of Ukraine, it's escalating. We can now see that this confrontation is manifested in every city of Ukraine, and there is an underground movement to oppose the activities of the draft offices. These Zelensky people, they are being chased away from many towns, from many cities, from many villages, because people want to protect their lives, the lives of their families, of their friends. So yes, in Ukraine, the murders are continued, tortures also continue, but there is more and more opposition to this, and as I've mentioned previously, it can touch anyone. And Zelensky is like a Grim Reaper who can enter any household. So it concerns more and more people, and that's why there is going to be this civil opposition to this, both in the open and underground. And I have to say that I'm against all kinds of confrontation like this, because all these processes must take a calmer shape, it must make a more democratic shape. That's why we keep on urging, calling upon the President Trump and his administration to help to resolve this issue in Ukraine and help to... They could speak to their employee, to Vladimir Zelensky, and to make a final decision in his regard.
Well, thank you for speaking to RT today. We truly appreciate it. Ukrainian MP Artem Dmytruk.